Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Bonsai, Dr. Bonsai's Meme Emporium, and tonight I've got a quick hitter for you because I think these have been probably reviewed to death. So what we have right here is the Cataphractii Terminators. As you can see, I've built 5 already, and I've got the sprue for the other 5. In the Age of Darkness box set, you get a total of 10, and of those 10, and when you buy it at retail, you actually get 10 miniatures again. So basically you have the sprues divided into two parts, basically the legs and upper body and the ranged weapons. Well, most of the ranged weapons, as well as the heads. And as you can see, the heads are this very unique, they're not a full head because you can't actually see anything past the lower jaw once you get these big collared armor suits on. So there you go, and then you get 5 combi bolters, which are your standard armament for everybody. Everybody has one. You get 3 chain fists. I'm sorry, 4 chain fists. You get 5 pairs of lightning claws. So these ones with really accentuated, blades on their fingers. Various different poses for that. You get the arms that kind of terminate and no hand, and that's where these come in. You get the multi-layered shoulder pad armor, and you get a heavy flamer, and that's it. Oh, and you get a grenade harness, which is basically like a sergeant only grenade launcher. So I like this set, but I have some notes, if you'll bear with me. So the models themselves, they're fantastic. As you can see, they build up really nicely, and as you can see, you can kind of see where it's like, okay, after a certain point, there's no point, there's no reason to mold the full head. You can see the arms are very dynamic because you have those leather truges, I think they're called, which are basically strips of leather reinforced with like metal nails, metal studs. So you get those, and obviously they build up really well. I took leave of my senses and I gave my sergeant no helmet because I just like the way that looks. So as you can see, builds up really well. Detail is nice and clean and complete. So why do I think this kit could be better? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First and foremost, the standard loadout, for a Cataphractii Terminator, and I realized these miniatures were created, let's actually see. There's usually a date stamp here on these sprues. 2014. I remember these when they came out. Oh, 1 second. I gotta do some back mobility exercises. I gotta take my leave because I suddenly feel very old. So these came out at a time when basically Horus Hersy was kind of this niche thing that didn't seem like it was going to take off or go anywhere. And then the excuse was like, oh, you can use these for your standard Terminators and Warhammer. Okay, fine, whatever. In 40K. And then they started to lean really hard into the Heresy because it was really good. And it continues to be fairly good. So, that being said, these kind of show their age a little bit in the fact that they're not monopose. They can be posed, and as you can see, I've kind of posed them quite well, I thought. The issue is that the flow of the leather straps, the truges, I think they're called, is how you pronounce that, on the arms only lend themselves to a certain build or certain arrangement. Because, like, for example, you have this arm and you have the truges that they're very obviously like heavy and weighted and go straight down. You couldn't have him with his gun kind of like facing towards the sky, for example, or more in a downward thing, because that would kind of interrupt the flow of the of these things. So for example, obviously this one's a pointing arm, and it's a very bespoke pointing arm, and then you have this one where it's like, okay, what if I wanted to kind of raise this arm a little bit? And you can't really do that. So so that's my chief critique of these, is that they allow you to build pretty decently, but it also lacks a certain finesse, or certain things that you would kind of want on your Terminators. So the other critique I would say is options, because in Horus Heresy, your base weapon option for a Terminator is literally a power weapon, so either a sword, axe, or a mace, and a combi bolter, so basically a twin-linked bolt gun. So, and then anything extra you pay extra points for. So these, technically, the guys with even the standard dudes with the power fist, they're not quote unquote regular Terminators. You bought them using points, and of course most of the other Terminators that you would look at, they have the option that are kind of Legion specialties or whatever. That's kind of how they're built. So it's really unfortunate that you kind of have to build around them unless you're willing to invest in 3D prints, or if you've got that kind of money, invest in Forge World. So that kind of makes a sticky situation depending on what your economic footprint is like. The other thing is, because these guys are older, they actually scaled really well with the Mark IV Space Marines that they came out with, which I think were really effective and looked really good. But that was when they were little baby Marines built on 25 millimeter bases, and here they are compared to your standard Mark VI PK Marine. Now they do have a little bit of, come on, focus, there we go. So as you can see, that's kind of as even as they can get. So as you can see, they're both fairly broad. The Terminator does give it, the shoulder pads and basically the back give it a little extra height, but they don't look nearly as big or intimidating as they probably should, or at least even compared to the Leviathan box Indominus Terminators. They're kind of the standard pattern Terminators. So honestly, if you're just playing like super casual, like I'm gonna do, because I'm not trying to be all sweaty and gross with my hobby when it comes to Horus Heresy, these are fine. These are okay. They're obviously not gonna set the world on fire, but at the same time, you get 10 to a box at retail. I believe their retail is at $90, and if you go to MichiganToySoldier.com, you can get upwards of 10 or 15% off any Games Workshop items. Not sponsored, by the way. I wish they would. That would be amazing. But overall, they're a solid 3 out of 5. And the only reason they're a 3 out of 5 is because the kit's starting to show its age. It's well engineered. It's a GW product after all, but it's not as well engineered as it could be, especially when you compare it to the current crop of Space Marine stuff. So that's pretty much all I gotta say. So I'm gonna probably go dark on this for a little while, because the next thing really for me to take a look at and build are the Contemptor Dreadnought and the Contemptor Dreadnought and the Land Raider Spartan, which are going to be 2 huge assembly and painting projects. I'm going to have to make like a video in multiple stages for both of those, talking about the construction. So I hope you guys enjoyed this quick review. Have a good evening.